Nama Om Vishnu Padayam Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaura Vani Pacharami Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Prastuta Deshatarani. I am honored to be invited to the 50th anniversary of Prabhupada installing Radha Gopivallabha, the deity of Boston ISKCON, which he did in 1971. I was present with him. I served as the priest and poured liquids of Abhishek on Radha and Krishna. And Prabhupada sat on a mat a little behind me, and he read from the Brahma Samhita prayers. "50 years is a long time ago. I confess I do not remember so much from 50 years ago. But there's an expression Ishta Devi, which means one's favorite form of the Lord. So Radha Gopivallabha are the favorite forms of the Lord for many devotees, especially for those who live in the temple and those who live and take part as the congregation of Boston Temple. There are many others around the world whose lives have been touched by Radha Gopivallabha and who consider them their favorite deities. Those devotees who are now serving them see Radha Gopivallabha as their Ishta Devita, their favorite form of the Lord. They serve them day and night. Bathe them, dress them, feed them, worship them. When Prabhupada came, the deities had already arrived. The head pujari at that time was a lady named Gaura Devi Dasi. She was a leading book distributor as well as a pujari. So she sat beside Prabhupada and began to dress Radha Gopivallabha. But the clothes didn't fit, and it became a little tense. She had to re-sew them right in front of Prabhupada so that the dresses actually fit. Prabhupada did not get upset, neither did she, and they worked together until the dresses fit. They were a green color. So Prabhupada chanted the Brahma-samhita prayers and then performed arati. Many devotees present, and everyone was very ecstatic. After installing the deities, Prabhupada went back to his room. In preparing for him to come to Boston, he thought our temple wasn't sufficient. It was a big mansion, but it was a little run down. So we thought to put Prabhupada in the Boston Sheraton Hotel in the VIP suite. Went ahead and rented it. The lady gave me a long stem rose and asked, if your spiritual master is so renounced, why are you renting a room in the VIP suite at the Boston Sheraton? I said, well, he's a very great personality and he deserves the best. Prabhupada arrived at the temple and talked informally with the devotees. And I said to him, Prabhupada, do you want to go to your room in the hotel now? He said, I don't want to go to any hotel. A hotel is a brothel. We weren't prepared for this. It meant we'd have to put him up in the temple room. He didn't have such a nice room for him. And in fact, he would have to share a bathroom with the brahmacharis. But he accepted it happily. He would rather be a little inconvenienced but living in the temple rather than living in the brothel. After the installation, Prabhupada came back out again, took darshan of Radha Gopivallabha. I was standing beside him, and he asked me, what do the devotees think of the deities? And I smiled very happily and said, oh, Prabhupada, they love them. He was pleased to hear that. There's some question about how Radha Gopivallabha received their names. He didn't name them right away. In a letter to the temple president, Das Prabhu, in 1973, he gave the names to their lordships. He said, yes, they may be named Radha Gopivallabha. So it's proved by the letter from Prabhupada himself that that is their name. We had initiations for quite a few devotees. Srila Prabhupada initiated them the day after the installation. I see the name Sumati here, and another devotee who was present back then in 1971 was Somadas. Is it possible for them to speak some memories? Somadas? Jai.
This is him.
Yeah.
If you're going to speak, Prabhu, could you unmute your phone or laptop, please? We're not hearing you.
Sumati,
Hare Krishna Maharaj, it's so nice to see you again.
nice to see you.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, you're a very cheerful devotee.
You were, I have to say, you were probably my favorite temple president. You were like a father to us. And I remember after Radha Gopivallabha were installed, and or even before, the year before, whenever you would get a letter from Srila Prabhupada, before you would even open it, you would gather all the devotees and bring us all into the temple room and tell us how our father, Srila Prabhupada, has written us a letter. And then you would open it, read it to all of us as if it was not just for you, but for his Boston family. It was so wonderful. And whenever I got sick, you would personally always check on me and see if I was okay. And if I had an upset stomach, you would get some ginger ale for me. I mean, I just have such fond memories of you as a real spiritual father. I'm very grateful for that.
Did you have any exchange with Srila Prabhupada at this time?
Yeah, well, I got first and second initiation that day by your recommendation, because the day after the installation, Mother Gauri went back to New York, and I began the service of caring for Radha Gopivallabha.
Oh,
So yeah, I had that, and I don't know whether they interviewed me like a week or a couple weeks ago, I think it was. I told the story of how when Prabhupada was giving me second initiation, I didn't understand anything about saying Gayatri mantra, what to do with your hands. So Prabhupada took my hand in his hands and took my thumb and put it in all the places I was supposed to put it to say the Gayatri mantras. So that was a very special moment with Srila Prabhupada. And like you said, when their dresses did not fit, I ran up to the sewing room and got a pair of scissors and had to come back, and because the skirts were sewn up all the way around, so there was no way for Prabhupada to put them on the deities. So I had to cut them open, and then Gauri made some adjustments so that they would fit them. Haribol, Soma, you're muted. There. Oh, still can't hear you.
why can't we hear Soma?
I don't know. Um, Maybe if I mute myself, maybe only two people can be unmuted at the same time. So I'll mute myself and see if.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Hare Krishna. Accept my humble obeisances, Maharaj. It's so wonderful to see and hear you. And just like Sumati Mataji said, you're like a spiritual father to us. And, you know, especially for me, I was very young when I came there, and you really took care of me. And I really will be internally indebted to you for that. I feel very fortunate that I moved into the temple at that time when you were there, and I could see your example and your dedication to Srila Prabhupada. It was very, very inspiring. And of course, that day that Srila Prabhupada came was so wonderful that, you know, he installed Radha Gopivallabha, and he initiated us. And I think that was, you know, due to your mercy. So
Definitely.
And I just I was so overwhelmed. That was the first time really seeing Srila Prabhupada. Of course, I heard so much about him from you, and that was really one of the best things I liked. You know, living in a temple with the association of devotees, is they all had these wonderful stories of Srila Prabhupada. And you know, every time they would tell a story about Srila Prabhupada, their whole face would light up, and you could tell that they had such a, you know, wonderful experience with Srila Prabhupada. And I was like the handyman in the house. You know, I could fix broken windows, and I got to do those kind of jobs. So I got to break up the firewood for the fire sacrifice. And just how you described it, though, Srila Prabhupada sitting there, and you know, he asked for the Brahma Samhita. He read from the Brahma Samhita, and he read the whole book. He read all of the verses in a very slow and loving, devotional voice. I can remember sitting opposite him and just, you know, watching him. He put his glasses on, and he was just reading from the Brahma Samhita with so much love and devotion.
Yes.
It was amazing. And then I also remember that he, after you did the Abhishek on Radharani, Srila Prabhupada was personally drying Radharani. And he kept on.
He rubbed her so hard. He was like rubbing her so hard over and over again. Like.
Yeah, I can remember he would be rubbing, and then he would sit back and just stare at her. And you could tell he was just right there with Radharani. And he did it over and over again. Then he would pause and sit back, and just with so much love, you know, look at Radharani.
Yeah. I remember that well also.
Yeah.
And then him putting her hair on and her crown and just everything was so, like you said, with so much love and so much devotion.
Yeah.
It was so sweet. And I have a picture of him actually also drying Gopivallabha. So, and I think he and Gauri maybe dressed Gopivallabha together, but he dressed Radharani.
Yeah.
And then he was saying that her feet should not show, because we didn't know anything. We just thought, of course, her feet should show. Gopivallabha's lotus feet show, so why wouldn't Radharani's lotus feet show? So there were just 3 outfits to begin with, 2 that Rukmini had made and 1 that Gauri made. But they were all short, so Radharani's feet showed in all of them.
And before Radha Gopivallabha was installed, Gauri wanted to change the altar a little bit. So I remember I helped modifying the altar, and it was a very simple altar. It was just a plywood box with some cloth on it.
Right.
And, it had some arches left over, but it was very, very simple. And when Satsvarupa Maharaj, when you went down to New York the next day after Prabhupada left, when you came back to Boston, you told me that Srila Prabhupada told you that we should make an altar like they have in New York, because the altar there was much nicer. It was marble. It had 3 places. We only had 2. And so eventually, from that instruction of how we should make an altar like they have in New York, we did make one similar to New York.
We were trying to keep up with them.
Yeah.
I remember that new altar, it was painted white, the top part, and then someone painted, like there was a lotus flower painted on it and a conch shell, and I think a disc and a club, maybe.
Yeah, it had all the 4 marks of Vishnu. Prikshit painted that, because actually Prikshit came up to help build the altar, and Prikshit actually carved the new Lord Jagannath deities.
You and I have different remembrances of Lord Jagannath going in the ocean.
Yeah.
Because it was you and me and Sahotra that took them.
Yeah.
And there was some big van, and we had milk crates loaded with rocks, and then there were I remember they had these green wool blankets that we wrapped around the deities and then tied them to the milk crates. And the 3 of us were like standing on the edge of this cliff. We were all 3 crying. It was so intense. It was so intense. I mean, I'll never forget it. It was, and I think we threw Lord Balaram in first. It was either Balaram or Jagannath. But then the water was so clean and clear that we watched him go down, down, down. And then all of a sudden, I guess they hit the bottom, but we could still see them. You could still see his bright, shining face. And then we swung Subhadra, Lady Subhadra, and tossed her in, and she landed right beside Balaram.
Wow.
And then Lord Jagannath landed, so all 3 of them were lined up just like they had been on the altar. And we could see them. I mean, it was so devastating. It was devastating. And we were trying to do kirtan, but we were crying, so we couldn't sing very well. But that was like in January or February. I know.
Yeah, because Srila Prabhupada told us we should throw them in the ocean.
And you thought you could get a boat, but it was too much in the winter. Nobody had a boat. But you're like, I know where there's this cliff where the water is really deep. But then it was the next summer, and I was down in the front hallway, cleaning the hallway for the Sunday program. And this girl knocked on the front door and came in, and there were 3 paintings that Jadharani had done in the front hallway of the North Beacon Street Temple. It was a painting of Lord Jagannath, a painting of Subhadra, and a painting of Balaram. And but in the opposite order. So Lord Jagannath was the last one and she was walking past them, and when she saw Lord Jagannath, she stopped and she looked and she turned to me and she said, "He's in my basement." I'm like, "What do you mean he's in your basement?" She said, "My father was out fishing one day and he found him in the water and he brought him home and he's in our basement." But it was just Lord Jagannath. And then I was so busy because I had to finish the cleaning and then get ready to do the arti for the Sunday arti program. And by the time I finished my services, she was gone. So I never got her name or address or any way to contact her, and never saw her again.
Those were paintings by Jodharani.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know where they are now, those paintings. Maybe they're still at the Boston Temple somewhere.
I also remember that it was right after Radha Gopivallabha were installed and we got our first initiation. It was during the day. And in Srila Prabhupada's room, he had a rocking chair. And I guess somebody had a movie camera. And Maharaj, you started to interview Srila Prabhupada. There is some video of that. But
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
I've seen it on YouTube. But then I guess Srila Prabhupada didn't want you asking him questions. He wanted like a guest to ask the questions. So some hippie, they show him next. And I mean, he's asking really nice questions, about Krishna, and Srila Prabhupada's answering them really nicely. But from what I remember, it was just, they went out in the hallway and they just grabbed the closest guest they could and they brought him in to have a wonderful conversation with Srila Prabhupada. Do you remember that, Maharaj?
No. I don't have a good memory. I'm enjoying your memories.
Oh, thank you.
There's a picture. Oh, I don't know if those are, maybe those are the original pictures. I think they are. That's Muktavanya showing. Yeah, I guess they're in the temple room there in Boston.
Oh yeah, I see up.
Yeah. Michael Blum, it says, but it's Muktavanya.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, those are the pictures. Those are the paintings. Wow. I don't know where he is, if he's in the temple or if he's in his home somewhere. But I remember I wrote one letter to Prabhupada because, I would put Radha Gopivallabha and little Radha and Krishna in pajamas at night. But no one ever changed Lord Jagannath. I don't think Lord Jagannath even wore clothes then, because he was painted with his clothes. Do you remember, Maharaj? Did he have the big Lord Jagannath?
Dressed.
It's in the prasadam room.
But I wrote to Srila Prabhupada and asked him if Lord Jagannath could wear pajamas. And Srila Prabhupada wrote back and said, yes, Lord Jagannath can wear pajamas.
That's nice to know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I hold up these pictures, if you can see them, but this is a really old picture.
Yeah, I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
And there's Radharani.
Yeah.
That's when they wore big crowns, and we would have Radharani's hair coming out, showing. And yeah, I'm having copies of these pictures made. I'm going to send them up to the Boston temple.
Good.
So Muktivanya, are those the original paintings from the old temple? Oh, he's muted. I don't know if he heard me.
Yes, those are the original paintings.
Oh, wow. You're very lucky. Lord Jagannath blessed you.
Yeah. So I can remember after a little bit of time, I would put the Radha Gopivallabha to rest.
Oh, nice.
And you know, that was my service. So every night for a while, and it was also my service to guard the temple. So I would put them to rest, and then I would just lay down on the temple room floor, you know, right at the top of the stairs and where the door was, to make sure that nobody would come in. But I was such a heavy sleeper that usually I think you had to wake up the deities, and you had to, you know, like walk over me practically just to get in there. Because even though I was the guard, I was a really heavy sleeper. But it was true that one of the first services that I did in the Boston temple, the very first day I was there, they asked me if I could fix broken windows, because some of the young, you know, teenagers would throw rocks and break the windows in the temple.
Yes.
So that was something that I knew how to do, is fix broken windows. So that was one of my first services.
Yeah. A very practical service.
Yeah. And of course, the next service I had was washing pots. And I can remember, I think Haridayananda, who was the temple commander at that time, brought me back to where there was 3 women washing pots. I think it was Balai, Kanchambala, and Leela Sukha. And they were there washing pots. And when I came, he brought me there to relieve them. One of them said, I can't remember which one, they said, "Oh, you're coming to wash pots?" Srila Prabhupada said that when you wash Krishna's pots, it's like washing your heart. And it just made such a big impression on me. You know, just that simple little thing, that all of a sudden I was washing pots, and I was really like almost ecstatic that, oh, I'm cleaning my heart. You know, and it just turned what's usually kind of a mundane activity into a very enjoyable one. And I was just, you know, really grateful that I could do that service.
I had the same experience with being given the service of washing the floor. And because you did it when there was no like modern conveniences. You just had a bucket of water and a rag. And but that's what I was told too, that this is a really good way of cleaning your heart. And it made the service very wonderful. And, yeah, I still think of that when I wash the floors and wash pots, because my heart still really needs a lot of cleaning.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Baladev Prabhu. Acharya Dev Prabhu. We have a small presentation. So,
Hare Krishna.
yes, Baladev Prabhu. So, what are the plans, Prabhu? Are we still going on?
It's 15 minutes to 7.
6.
To 6.
Do you want to go down now? They have other things they can do.
Okay.
So Satsvarupa Maharaj will stop now.
No, we can continue, Prabhu. We can continue this, but I just wanted to make sure what are our plans.
Go till 6 or stop. He'd prefer to stop. He's starting to get tired.
Yeah, thank you very much, Maharaj. Like I say, you're, one of my heroes in Krishna consciousness, and because of you, I'm here and still a devotee. So thank you very much.
I feel the same way. Thank you so much. Because I'll tell you, you were more kind to me than a lot of the women in the temple when I first joined. There was a lot of women. They were very, very heavy. Everything was black and white. It was good or bad or wrong or right. And you were just so gentle and kind. And you, yeah, made a big impression. I felt like you were protecting me. And it was very wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for being so sweet. Okay.
Okay, I'll take the mic off now.
Can we see some close-up pictures of Radha Gopivallabha? Is that possible?
Yeah.
From the temple?
Yes.
Anamali would have to do that.
There is a close-up.
Little closer, but okay.
Ready? So Maharaj really should go. He's got pneumonia, so he's a little on the weak side.
Well, I hope you get better soon.
I will if I rest. Thank you for this interview.
Sorry, Sumati Mata. That's the best we could show.
I hope.
Hare Krishna, just we're showing a small presentation now. Sorry, Smriti. That's the best we could show.
Boston was one of the early and most important centers of the Krishna consciousness movement. There were only these few temples, and Boston was one of them. And it was an important center with Satsvarupa Maharaj and one of the pillars of our society.
We're actually eternal spirit soul. We're meant to enjoy eternal bliss and be full of knowledge. And this we can only do when we get spiritual teaching.
With Radharani, our first woman and very strong devotee.
Krishna is everything. That's the whole point of Krishna consciousness. That there's nothing beyond Krishna. So everybody belongs with Krishna. Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure.
Boston is a really, wonderful place that Srila Prabhupada had walked all over. He also walked, in downtown. And of course, he first arrived in America at Commonwealth Pier.
I met Giriraj Maharaj before he was even initiated. He was so enthusiastic, attending all the programs, was a Sankirtan devotee.
I first joined the temple at 95 Glenville Avenue. It was a storefront. It was small.
Just a few people, but spiritually strong.
At that time we didn't have Radha Gopivallabha, we just had little brass deities. But the deity worship is a little hard to relate to. But then I saw Satsvarupa do the deity worship. A responsible person, sober, pure-hearted, intelligent. And so seeing him do it, I thought, must be something to it.
We found this 40 North Beacon, very big house.
At one point, Prabhupada gave the instruction that everybody should go out for kirtan, for chanting. At least an hour a day.
We used to go out on the Boston Commons. And a few devotees circulating in the crowd that gathered.
The Harinam party would also sell Back to Godhead magazines.
So that became a source of income. And devotees would spend hours and hours there. It was enlivening.
Devotees were all chanting in Boston Commons, and I was smiling. There was big crowds of people watching, and I was probably the only one smiling and swaying and going, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. The devotees saw that, and they started going, come to us, come and sing with us. So I went up to the devotees, I sang, I danced, I was in total ecstasy. And after that, I went up to one of the ladies, and I said, you people two of the most beautiful people I have ever met. I feel so wonderful. I feel so happy like I've never felt before. She said, "Oh, thank you. We're inviting you to our Sunday feast," and she handed me the card.
Boston was always known for its amazing Sunday feasts, with subjis and sweet rice and halava and nectar drinks. We lived from one Sunday feast to the next.
At the time, Boston was the biggest temple in ISKCON. ISKCON Press was there. They had more devotees than any other temple in ISKCON. We had little Radha Krishna deities, big Lord Jagannath deities have been replaced. And we had a picture of Lord Chaitanya performing Sankirtan. That picture is still in the Boston temple.
Prabhupada came in 1971, and he was rewarding the temple for persevering.
Satsvarupa had requested that we get a larger set of Radha Krishna deities.
In the temple at 40 North Beacon Street, we got word that Srila Prabhupada had sent Radha Krishna deities by boat.
He had personally purchased them in India. They were identical to the Radha brass deities he had installed in Mayapur.
And he was to come and install them, and there were quite a number of us devotees waiting to get initiated.
It was his kindness to stop and visit Boston, which was now a smaller temple.
ISKCON Press moved back to New York. Jadharani and all the artists and everybody that worked on the press, they all went down to New York.
In the meantime, Radha Gopivallabha had arrived by boat. When I finally got fully unpacked, and there they were, shining like gold, so effulgent and beautiful.
Such a wonderful atmosphere, though, knowing that Srila Prabhupada is coming and arriving, getting to prepare for him.
The time came for Prabhupada to come, and it was very, very exciting. Prabhupada flew to Boston from Detroit. A few devotees stayed back at the temple because it was the day for the Sunday feast, and we always had quite a large crowd.
This is the first time that most of us who were living at the temple had ever seen Srila Prabhupada in person. So we all went to the airport to greet him. And we had a big kirtan. We were waiting for him.
We're waiting, and so many passengers are leaving, and no Srila Prabhupada, and all of a sudden there he was in the door of the plane, just effulgent like the sun, and he walked down the steps.
He came in, and we were all just having this wonderful kirtan as Srila Prabhupada was walking through the airport, overwhelmed by having finally seen him. We all offered our obeisances, and we went right back to the temple because there were so many guests waiting to meet Srila Prabhupada.
When Prabhupada first arrived, he came to the temple and lectured and met with the devotees afterwards.
I had heard him on tapes before, and I had read his books. I can remember having that understanding that it was his temple. He had always been there. His presence was always felt there.
And so then the next day was, in the morning, was the installation of Radha Gopivallabha.
And it was like a combined ceremony. The same fire sacrifice, installed Radha Gopivallabha and did our first initiation.
Mother Gauri assisted him in that, and Satsvarupa.
I sat beside him as he guided me in arranging ghee, yogurt, and milk.
Srila Prabhupada, who was sitting on his cushion, he said, in the four corners, people should be reading from 4 different scriptures. He said, go get me the Brahma Samhita. And Srila Prabhupada started chanting the Brahma Samhita prayers, reading the book.
The installation was quite simple. They were bathed in some stainless steel tubs.
It allowed me to pour the liquids from Gopivallabha, golden forms standing before us.
After the Abhishek, Srila Prabhupada asked for Radharani. he personally started drying and polishing Radharani.
And they became extremely shiny and effulgent. Prabhupada dressed them, both of them, and put on their crowns.
Worship of Krishna is just being grateful for everything that he gives. He's given us the holy name. Radha Gopivallabha has agreed to appear. And then there was another initiation in the evening. And this time, Karandar performed the fire dagya. Of course, Srila Prabhupada was sitting right there. I remember watching him chanting.
Radha Gopivallabha were already installed when I first started coming at the end of 72. Although it was cold and austere in Boston, it was really a family spirit. That's what I remember most about the temple.
They had, so much love for Srila Prabhupada. I really wanted to be part of it.
Everybody just embraced the opportunity to do whatever was necessary to keep the temple going. In 74, somehow or other, we purchased this building on Commonwealth Avenue.
It was a very exciting move.
We had to be out of that building by a certain date, but it wasn't ready to move the deities. We got everything together here for receiving the deities, and so there would be no disruption whatsoever to the deity worship. In between their morning artik and their lunch offering,
the deities were transported in the back of the station wagon.
Adi Keshava took Gopivallabha and Sumati took Srimati Radharani.
I remember sitting back there with them. When we first got there, they were on a temporary altar, but on the second floor, while the altar downstairs was being prepared in the temple room.
There was no hiccup. The deities got their next artik, they got their next offering.
He is able to take service from you in any way. Therefore, you have to approach him authorizedly. For your facility, Krishna has appeared before you as stone, as wood. But stone is also Krishna. That requires little brain. He can take service in any form. That is absolute. Because the stone is not different from Krishna. It is Krishna's energy. Just like a small letter box. You put the letter and it will go 10,000 miles away. How it goes?
An idol means worshiping something as God, which is not God. That the deity is God. It's not an idol in the sense of worshiping something which is not God as God, but it actually is God.
If you approach the deities as brass or stone, they will remain brass or stone. But if you approach him as Krishna, then he will reveal himself to you that he's Krishna.
So Krishna is being taken care of very nicely. Krishna is eating so many preparations. There's morning, there's breakfast, there's snacks. And also the deities' clothes are being changed regularly.
Hare Krishna devotees, now we are going to have Gaura Arati from the temple. Hare Krishna.
How is the audio being broadcast?
No, it's going on.
Yeah?
जय श्री राधा गोपीवल्लभ भगवान की जय श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की जय श्री गौर निताय चंद्र भगवान की जयो जयो गौरा चंद्र आरती Jayam Vishnupada Brahmansa Parivrajakacarya Sadrasata Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Maharaj ki Jayam Vishnupada Brahmansa Parivrajakacarya Sadrasata Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Srila Prabhupada ki ISKCON Devotee Founder Acharya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai Prem se kaho Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gaur Gopinath Syam Kunda Radha Kunda Shri Giri Govardhan ki Radhumi Vrindavan Dham ki Navadip Mayapur Dham ki Purushottam Kshetra Jagannath Puri Dham ki Ganga Maiya ki Yamuna Maiya ki Bhakti Devi ki Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki Shri Radha Gopivallabha Bhagwan ki Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maharani ki Shri Govinda Chandra Bhagwan ki Shri Harinam Sankirtan Yajna ki Shri Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki Hidai Gaur Premanande all Buddhist personal devotees all Buddhist personal devotees all Buddhist personal devotees all Buddhist Sri Guru and Gauranga
Namaste Naratrinhaya Namaste Naratrinhaya